Ruler School is brought to you by Happy Little Hug Factory and these amazing patrons. Thank you for your support. Enjoy the video. Hey there, Rulers. Welcome back to Ruler School. This is DMO73 bringing you feature match coverage for Paul Clute and his Loki machines versus myself and a Token Rush Hanzo list that was sent to me by Lars, player from Germany, Lars Grams. Super fun list. It's definitely a very different take on Hanzo than what you saw last week with the quick cast. And then I will note that this is pre Strangers of the New Valhalla, so take what you see here a little bit of a grain of salt. We'll have a Strangers of the New Valhalla list ready for you guys next week. So I'm going to be on the draw here. The whole idea of the Token Rush Hanzo is to get as many small creatures out as possible, and then play either Vlad or Kame, the 4-drop Darkness card from the structure deck, or Kame, who whenever one of your creatures swings, you get to ping your opponent for 2 damage to just kind of suddenly do this massive wave of chip damage against your opponent. And Paul is playing Loki machines for the idea of you don't really care about using Arthur's Master Rune back in the day, and you want to be able to flip and do cheap Merlins to get all the kind of access there. Going into my turn 1 after he plays that Vivian, I'm going to hurt myself for 2 and burn Energize to play Ataraktia, and then play a Cat Ninja Scout and swing into him for 3. He says, that's fine, I'll take it. Goes down to 37. This deck does make a heavy use of Ataraktia, 1 to ramp, and 2 to also be able to, again, push that damage very, very fast with Swiftness. Gets that second stone, has that Magic Stone of Time. Pays 2 and plays the Sky Round here, so then Vivian will get a counter because a machine comes into play, so she'll be this 5/5 flyer. Now he could use this to kill my Cat Ninja Scout. Instead, I think he actually decides to push damage at my face, which I think is... knowing that I'm going to get a token out of it anyway, it kind of makes sense that he doesn't want to have to really worry about it. It's not like the Cat Ninja Scout is going to hit him back, so it's not a big deal. Calling Stone on my end, getting a Speaker Stone. Ataraktia being able to give anything I play Swiftness is a really big asset. It's just a matter of whether or not I can kind of get the creature. You see, I already have the Chiome, which is a solid token producer, as well as the Kame in my hand. I'm going to do Sandstorm here to get the 2 damage on the Guinevere, or the Vivian, and then swing the Cat Ninja Scout into it to try to kill it. He's going to go ahead and use the maintenance here to pump it up, get the extra counters. And then I'm thinking about whether or not I want to kind of stop that. Ultimately, I say, you know what, that's fine. I'll just, have the token anyway. So it gets buffed up, and then the token gets crashed in. I get a Cat Ninja Scout here. And then in response to the Cat Ninja Scout being played, I'm going to go ahead and cast a Life Severing Blade to go ahead and kill the Vivian because my creatures hit the graveyard. Seeing that Hanzo token. Playing a second Ataraktia using the first Ataraktia, and then passing the turn. So I'll be going into 5 will on my next turn, which sets me up really nicely having the red source from the stones to be able to potentially steal a creature and then sacrifice it with Kame after hitting him with it, and still giving Kame Swiftness. So I potentially am about to get a lot of damage on board. Plays that Mechanical Knight. Gets a counter, so it's a 1-drop 7/7 essentially. And then the Skyround Technician pumps it up even further, and then Skyround Technician gets a counter as well. Going into my turn, calling a stone, hitting that Spirit Stone. Obviously that stone is going to be banned after this new ban list. Looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. This was a match that we recorded before we knew what the ban list was going to be. So I make a little bit of a misplay here in not keeping the red open. No, I think I do keep the red open. For the Kane. deciding before I cast it if this is how I want to spend the will. Play the Kame here, so I get to steal one of his creatures and give it swiftness until end of turn. Swing at him for 6 or 7, and then it burns him for 2, so take him down to a grand total of so it's 37, 2 for the burn, and then another 7 damage, taking him down to 28 if he decides not to block. So that's fine. Burning myself for red and sacrificing the creature to Kame. Not that it needs swiftness, but mainly just want to get the creature off the board. Swinging at him for 10. Taking him, and then the bonus extra 2 damage, so I'll get to take him down to a 16. Very, very fast, like I said. And he's only going to be at 4 will, and I'll be at a grand total of 6 will next turn, which with the stuff that I have in my hand is potentially a lot of aggression very, very quickly. Gonna play a Vivian here, follow it up with the Lancelot, get lots of counters on everything. Fortunately, it does set him up to have 2 sets of 3 counters here, which is a little unfortunate for me, making such heavy use of Kame. Swings in for the 10. I say that's fine, I'll take it. Actually turns out to be 11 damage. So the opponent would be 9 damage actually. Sorry, I can't math. Getting another Spirit Stone. Choosing to kind of give me the option to recover, I think was a little bit of a misplay on Paul's side. I think I probably would have just destroyed the Kame outright before I got the chance to recover and possibly draw into a Lorite, especially here when I'm trying to use Forest Meditation to bring stuff back. Ultimately, like I said, we know that this Spirit Stone is going to be banned, so it's not a super big deal. But allowing me that ability to play that line out, I think was a little bit of a mistake. Playing a Cat Ninja Stout, so it has swiftness. Swinging at him for 3 and burning him for 2. Says that's fine, I'll take the 2. And then decides to take the 3 as well. Goes down to 11. Swing at him at 1. Attempt to burn him for 2. And then he's going to try to destroy it by using Lancelot's counter removal. I do have a response of that of trying to use Whirlwind Technique to try to cancel that, or to try to give him protection. Tries to use Lancelot's effect again. Ultimately, knowing that I'm probably going to be pushing lethal this turn, probably would have been smart for me to sacrifice that Spirit Stone and potentially draw into a Lorite, but it goes ahead and wards through. Paying a Darkness. I start to put out a sits right here. I catch myself. The Darkness was for the Skeleton Horde that's in my hand. It's what I meant to play. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to play at all. I wanted to play the Skeleton Horde, and then I pay the sits right out of my hand, and then pay 2 more to put do Yokai Festival, I think, is the play line here. Put another couple sits rights out onto the board. Or at least I start to do that and then realize I think that the Divinity would be too high if I did that. So instead I'm going to play Portal in the Woods and put out a Elf token at the end of the turn. Like I said, this deck produces a lot of tokens. Skeletons, Elves, and Cat Ninjas. So he's staring down a lot of damage right now, but thankfully he doesn't have a lot of counters, and he's already used maintenance. I'm also feeling pretty comfortable because I have the Master Rune to be able to stop whatever he might be trying to do with Loki. So my thought is that I can survive the damage and not have to worry about it, and then push through for next turn. As you see, I have that. I have enough creatures. I have that Forbidden Fruit in my hand, so the idea would be to play that, bring back the Kame, and then everything just kind of rushes him into the face to finish the game off. So knowing that I'm tapped out, Paul's kind of deciding exactly how he wants to play this out. Does have that Lancelot and a Dragon Sword's Breath in hand, so ultimately it is not a terribly difficult decision here. He plays the Lancelot. Don't have any way to respond to it. All the counters go up. He does have a Lancelot worth of counters to be able to destroy something with. And with that Dragon Sword's Breath in hand, he can get one blocker out of the way. So he has 3 creatures that can attack. He can remove 2 blockers, and he has a creature that has flying. So ultimately, this is going to be lethal. All he has to do is just swing it in the right order. Swing with the Lancelot, bounce whatever's going to block the Lancelot, so that damage is going to go through for 10. Vivian can then swing in the air for another 6, taking out a 16, and then the Knight can just swing through, and he can use that first Lancelot's counters to just kill whatever would block the Knight. Apologize for the delay. I had to take a phone call here during the match. Swings in. Try to block with the Skeleton Knight. He has that Dragon Sword's Breath, which bounces it out of the way. And then I say, oh, wait, you know what? You've got the flyer and you've got the 3 counters to remove the other thing. So, yeah, that's just the end of that game. And so we can go to game 2. As we go into the next game, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell down below so you're notified when all of our videos goes live. And consider supporting the channel by being a member here on YouTube or by checking it out on Patreon for all the cool exclusive perks that come with supporting us. Thank you guys so much. Let's go to the next game. Game 2 here, I'm going to be going on the play, hopefully having a little bit more of a fast start, and being able to better control the machines on the board in the middle game. I'm specifically trying to sacrifice creatures and things like that. First turn though, just heading out that Soot Sprite, not a very aggressive play, but at least it puts a body on board, potentially turns into something like a Cat Ninja Scout or a Chiome. Choosing to energize out the knowing that there's not much pressure on my side of the field, choosing to energize out the Sky Round just to get it out of the on the field now, I think is a smart decision, because now it's just going to progressively generate more value throughout the rest of the game, and I'm not playing really in any addition hate. Doing the Yokai Festival here to grab a couple more Soot Sprites. This is mainly just to have pressure, have blockers, and be able to refill my hand with things like Chiome or the Cat Ninja Scout, which are really the other kind of main fuel of the deck. Playing out that Vivian, she'll get 1 counter on her because of the Sky Round, and then playing the Mechanical Knight gets her another counter, and then Mechanical Knight also gets a counter here. Another green source. Not seeing red is pretty unfortunate. You see I have a pretty heavy hand of black, so that's not super great for me. So I'm like, you know what, I need to try to see some better cards here. You're tapped out. Let's go ahead and do this early game Forest Meditation play. Again, just goes to show, just like kind of last week, goes to show how this Forest Meditation combo with Spirit Magic Stone does impact the game quite significantly. I played the Idol and then immediately used the Idol to filter a green into red to play Ataraktia and get to draw another card. So feeling much better about my hand now, having access to some red. You see I do have that Cane in my hand too, and I have some access to some pretty decent removal and potentially even Lorite and a Farer's Command if I can survive a couple turns. At the end of the turn, having to discard, choosing to discard the Skeleton Horde. Then passing the turn. Calling Stone, hitting that Stone of Dramaturgy on Paul's side. Another Mechanical Knight, getting additional counters onto Vivian here. Swinging in the air for a grand total of 7, taking me down to 33. Choosing whether or not he wants to swing with the Mechanical Knight. In my position, I'm not actually sure if blocking with this Soot Sprite was the best idea, specifically because I'm trying to hopefully drop the Kame next turn. So what I could have done is allowed that attack to go through, and then had 3 Soot Sprites to be able to steal his other Mechanical Knight that's recovered, and then play the Kame, and then just swing in with everything. And so all of those Soot Sprites would be hitting him for 4. And I could even swing the Soot Sprites to burn him for additional damage and kill the other guys. He tries to do Erendite Blade here to stop the Kame trigger, and I have the Ferris spell to stop it. I do decide to take the Guinevere, mainly because the Guinevere is going to get to recover. He's going to respond by removing some of the counters from it. Then I'm going to crash the Guinevere into his Mechanical Knight and then ping him for 2 that way. Swinging the Soot Sprite into the Mechanical Knight, which will trigger and burn him for another 2 damage. Get to look for another ninja. Do happen to see the Chiome, which is going to come down next turn and really start to generate a ton of counters to be able to use with that, potentially with that Ferris command. And then I'll Sandstorm to get that last little bit of damage that I need onto the Mechanical Knight. So feeling pretty good about how that turn went. I got a lot of the creatures off board, specifically Vivian, which is the main powerhouse. I guess especially against this matchup because I'm pretty creature heavy. The idea being he could swing in with Vivian for a ton of damage and then just burn all the counters to tap everything down, and his machines could just wipe the floor with me. So really important to try to get that Vivian off the board as fast as possible. Thing is, for Paul, he also has to be cautious because he knows I have the Master Rune to cancel, so he has to kind of figure out how he wants to remove that Kame. It would have to be probably through an activate ability. It's not an easy way for him in this uphill kind of state to be able to get to something that has over 10 attack. So Kame kind of has to be killed with spells or abilities. And he knows that my deck is running, he's also a creature heavy deck, but he knows my deck is also running the Sealing Scroll, obviously, and then Fairer spells and Lorites. Just going to go ahead and cast Invitation here. Thinking about it, there's nothing really at the 2 cost range that I'm terribly concerned about him having with Invitation. So I'm saying that's going to be allowed to go through. I really want to save the Master Rune for something like Scrap and Build, or Maintenance, or the Loki Master Rune. Search for a Distortion of Time, it looks like. It's an interesting decision. Swinging in for that damage, I'll throw the Soot Sprite under the bus. Try to dig a little bit deeper, hopefully trying to find a Cat Ninja, which I thankfully do. Cat Ninja Scout. Passes the turn there with 2 Will open. Call another stone for me, hitting another Null Darkness Stone. Getting that Chiome, which will have swiftness because of the Ataraktia. So the way Chiome works is at the end of every end of each player's turn, she generates a cat token. So that can be very effective. And then plus in this instance, because I have Kame out, she's going to be swinging for a lot of damage. He's going to try to use Fog. Thick Fog to try to stop Kame from being able to attack, and I say, you know what, I have a Ferris spell for that, I'll stop it, and I still have a Loriteable, a will that I can use for a Lorite. Swinging into the Mechanical Knight to get it off the board, and then just burning him for 2 with the Kame trigger. At the end of the turn, getting a free creature off the cat token from Chiome and passing the turn. Most likely this means that I'll get a second cat token, because he probably won't have a way to kill Chiome, and his real priority right now is killing Kame, which sets me up nicely for being able to play, like I said, that Ferris command next turn potentially. I'd be at 6 will, 7 will, so I could cast Ferris command next turn if necessary. Choosing to cast Scrap and Build here. See, that's fine. I don't really mind it. I have a Lorite potentially to be able to stop something if he gets something particularly devastating. Sees a Vivian, which I'm not really concerned about at all at this point. So really here, Paul has to decide, he's kind of staring down lethal in the face. He has to try to figure out exactly how he's going to establish a board to be able to protect. Ultimately, that distortion of time doesn't really seem like it's going to be played this game, simply because of the fact that he just doesn't have time. He doesn't have time to be able to set something like that up. Now this time he could have just taken the entire turn and just distortioned me, but I wasn't really going to get him much value because at the end of the day he would still be going back to 1, he'd take another damage from the Cat Ninja Scouts because I generate 1 on his turn 2. So I'd still be establishing creatures that could then swing and burn him for damage, and 2, he wouldn't really be establishing much of a board presence, so he'd just be back in the same dilemma next turn. Attempting to move to combat, swinging in for 1 and then pinging him for 3. Says that's fine. Or pinging him for 2, so taking him down to a grand total of 19. Doing it again, swinging for 2, taking him down to 16. He says I'm not going to block. Swinging in for Giome for 8, pinging him for 2, down to 14, and then respectfully down to 6 if he chooses not to block. Going to try to use the maintenance to save, and at that point in time I'm going to go ahead and say I know the last rune is your master rune, you don't have the will to cast it, I'll Sealing Scroll the maintenance, so it'll have to turn into a trade. It's going to attempt to use Vivian to lock down the Kame. I say I'm going to go ahead and Lorite that. And then being able to use Ataraktia to cast Vlad. Vlad's also going to have Swiftness. And then in the air, Vlad can swing, ping him for 2. And he says, yeah, sure, I'm not going to block, but I think he just knows that he's done because at that point in time, I can just pump up Vlad by sacrificing the tokens, and we move on to game 3. So game 3, ending up being back on the draw again. Not really seeing how I want to open this hand here. Not really seeing much of anything, just having to keep that Lorite and Fair spell. Do we see an Ataraktia off the top, which is pretty nice. Hopefully I just need to get an access to a red source so I can cast it and start ramping ahead. First turn Time Stone, gonna go ahead and cast that Distortion right off the bat. He says I know I have to kind of do that now rather than later, and then just passing the turn. Don't see the Null Stone there. So unfortunately, I can't cast the Ataraktia that's in my hand, so I have to just pass. Now what I could have done there was Yokai Festival using the Energize to put out 2 Soot Sprites. Might have actually been a good call, just to have some board presence, because if machines get ahead of me, then I can be in a pretty big pickle. Takes a turn to cast the... we're both kind of taking time here to set up our plays. Burn myself for 2, play the Ataraktia, use the Energize and red from Ataraktia to play an Ataraktia. So again, trying to ramp ahead, now being at 5 will going into my turn 3. Playing that Mechanical Knight, he'll get 1 counter. Following it up with a Skyround Technician to put another counter on it. Going into my turn, gonna go ahead and recover. Call Stone. So I make a little bit of a misplay here, if I'm being honest, not considering the machine, the Skyround. I spend my other red will here, which I swing in, get the 9 damage, that's great. Swing in, get another 12 damage, take him down to 19. Ultimately, though, I should have left the red open and burned myself for 2 to sacrifice the creature, because he wasn't going to block, because, I mean, if he blocks, he loses it, and that's fine, and I've done my damage, and then I could just swing Came into it, and he'd lose both creatures, for me also burning him for 4. Letting him keep that as second creature then suddenly means that a Lancelot play is very, very viable. I do have the Lord in hand, which makes me feel a little bit more comfortable, but ultimately it probably would have been smarter for me to go ahead and sacrifice, get those machines off the board. That's how you kind of help your game against machines. And the less machines he has, the more he has to try to reestablish, and that gives me more of a time to be able to play my creatures and swarm him, because my removal is less based on having as many creatures with things like Life Severing Blade. And every creature just is a free 2 damage at the end of every turn. Or a free 2 damage every time it swings. Plays the Lorite here, or the Lancelot. Play the Lorite in response. He does happen to have the Arendite Blade to stop the Lorite's effect. This is what I'm talking about, how this was a really big issue. If I had just burned it away, even if, like the Lancelot, if I burned it away, the Lancelot would have given him a maximum of 2 counters, rather than giving him a creature that has 3 counters on it, or 2 counters on it. We would have had a significantly less amount of stuff to be able to make use of with that Lancelot. And now I'm just taking the unnecessary damage from the creature that I didn't give him back. Calling Stone here. Start to make a really interesting play, which is not smart at all. I just need to dig a little deeper. I pay 1, and then I cast Forest Meditation here. To try to bring back the Spirit Stone and the Came. We get a little bit confused on whether or not I can actually do this if I only have 1 stone in the grave, because it doesn't say up to, it says 2. So thankfully, in the fact that we catch that, we kind of repair the game state, and I just kind of commit to the fact that I didn't draw that card, so I end up putting it back on top of the deck. There's a Life Severing Blade, and Paul trusts that I was honest about it. Just use the Force Meditation to bring back the Came. I pretty much know at this point that there's really no way for me to come back. It was a waste of will. Play the Came here, attempt to take the creature. He's going to try to maintenance in response to try to get counters to be able to kill the Came. I'll go ahead and try to use the Sealing Scroll here to stop it. Crash this creature into his other guy. Swinging with the Lancelot at him for 2. And thinking another damage. Came swinging in, taking him for a grand total of 12. But then he's going to get the creature back at the end of the turn. And at that point in time, I know that there's really nothing much else I can do. So you're going to see it play out here. But ultimately, Paul does take this game here. My kind of big misplay of letting him keep that creature, I think, played a pretty big influence on this game. And I think it's one of the reasons why you have to remember all of these play lines. Came is a pretty devastating card, but only if kind of played correctly. But anyway, huge thanks to you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Deck list will be up later this week. And until next time, this is DMO73 saying class dismissed.